In the near future, food shortages and climate change have brought Earth to the brink of an extinction event. Riots and protests spread across the streets, and humanity eventually reached its breaking point. In 2242, a fleet of 42 ships called the Ark would transport 300,000 survivors to a new planet. It was named New Earth, located several light years away from Earth in a different star system. The remaining 19 billion people would die on Earth. Noah was not one of the chosen, but his girlfriend, Haley, was selected. They planned to board the Ark together, but the guards quickly separated them. Haley was pulled into the ship while the desperate crowd tried to break through the barricade. The guards were forced to open fire to disperse the crowd. On board the ship, Haley listened to her father, Admiral Kiernan, give a welcome speech. However, she was quickly distracted when she saw Noah running towards her. She took the opportunity to introduce him to Kiernan, but didn't mention that he was her boyfriend, only stating that he was the one who helped her get onto the ship. It seemed that Kiernan was very upset about Haley being pregnant and might become violent towards the father of her child. All passengers were required to enter cryosleep, except for some guards, engineers, doctors, and cleaning staff. Since Noah was pretending to be a cleaning staff member, he was allowed to stay awake and say goodbye to Haley before she was put into cryosleep. The crew members woke up to prepare for the quantum jump, and Noah accidentally sat in Clay's seat. Then, the ship entered hyperspeed and immediately traveled to another galaxy. The time during the jump was stretched out, taking only a few seconds but equivalent to 30 years on Earth, meaning that all the people they left behind on Earth were now dead. After arriving, the crew had a meal together. They witnessed guards capturing a passenger hiding on the ship, using a taser to subdue him, and then throwing him out into space. Commander Stanley reminded the crew that they had 182 days left to reach New Earth. Until then, he would be in charge of the ship since Kiernan was also in cryosleep. One evening, Noah discovered that he would have to share a room with Clay, who had no intention of making friends with him. The next morning, Noah visited Haley to talk to her while she was sleeping. However, he was interrupted by a virtual image of Clay, who reminded him to go to work. Day after day, cleaning staff like Noah had to work hard to keep everything clean. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew just played cards and relaxed. However, no one realized that something was lurking in the shadows, watching everything. One evening, Noah saw Clay and another crew member secretly carrying mysterious containers. A short while later, the ship's alarm went off, announcing that someone had attempted to access the reactor, an area that only Admiral Kiernan had the clearance to enter. Furiously, Stanley went to check the reactor room and was suddenly startled by a strange sound from the ceiling. However, nothing happened. Worried, Stanley asked Noah if he noticed anything suspicious, but Noah didn't mention Clay. Stanley explained that many rebels believed humanity should not destroy another planet, and they would attempt to sabotage the mission. So he reminded Noah to report any unusual activities. Later, Noah went to get more cleaning supplies and accidentally spilled moxocell, a substance so powerful it created a hole in the surface of the table. Meanwhile, Shady was drinking in his room and didn't notice a strange creature crawl into his bottle of alcohol. As soon as Shady drank it, he noticed an odd taste, and shortly afterward, his stomach started to hurt terribly. The pain was relentless, preventing him from continuing to take his medicine, but he still shared a cigarette with Blue. However, their relaxation was interrupted when Shady began to feel excruciating pain. Shady panicked, so Blue held him down to calm him and gave him a drink to ease the pain. For a moment, Shady felt better, but suddenly, he exploded, splattering blood all over Blue. At that moment, something in the blood attacked Blue. Back with Noah, he finished his work and tried to contact Clay, but received no response. Noah went to find him and discovered Clay mixing a strange concoction with moxocell. Suddenly, he was startled by a virtual image appearing behind him, thinking he was in trouble. Noah quickly ran away and collided with Teak. So he reported that Clay was making a bomb. At that moment, Clay appeared, and Teak revealed that he was on Clay's side. The two of them together captured Noah and took him away. When Noah was tightly handcuffed, Clay's team held him down and forced him to drink something, which turned out to be moonshine homemade alcohol. They had been making alcohol all this time, but kept it a secret from Stanley because drinking was against the rules. Sometime later, the crew threw a birthday party for Ortega and drank a lot. As a result, Stanley found out about the alcohol production. After the party, Ortega left the group to find Blue, but she discovered him welding alone. When he turned around, his face was in a terrible state, and he immediately captured Ortega, smashing her head against the wall. Meanwhile, Noah tried to access the ship's computer to alter his information. Clay caught him in the act, and Noah explained that he was the one who had gotten Admiral Kiernan's daughter pregnant. Before Clay could decide on a punishment, Stanley called the crew together and announced that he had found pieces of Shady's body. Since Blue was missing and Ortega had vanished after looking for him, Stanley suspected Blue was the culprit. Clay became suspicious, and the crew began searching the entire ship for the missing person. However, no one noticed that Teak had been staring at the reactor for too long. At that moment, Clay announced that he had found Ortega's body on the floor. The others continued searching, and eventually, Noah discovered Blue welding the door to Admiral Kiernan's room. Noah alerted the crew, and they immediately arrived with weapons. However, Clay wanted to try and convince Blue first. Unfortunately, words had no effect, and Blue charged at Shu, killing him in just a few seconds. The remaining crew members quickly opened fire and killed Blue. They then brought Blue and Shady's bodies to the medical room for Susan to perform autopsies. Meanwhile, Stanley locked the remaining members in their rooms. Susan noticed something was melting Blue from the inside before she began collecting samples. They looked quite grotesque, and the computer couldn't recognize them. Then, she reached into Blue's body, only to discover a black slimy substance, but no organs inside. Meanwhile, Teak finally found the security footage of Shady's death. After Stanley watched it, he unlocked Clay's room, and the group went to meet Susan. She explained that a parasite had consumed all of Blue's organs and was controlling his body. Now, the parasite had escaped and was wandering the ship. She had also checked the number of passengers to ensure no one was missing. Stanley was angry when he discovered that Noah was a stowaway. Clay defended Noah, so Stanley ultimately just struck him as a punishment. The group then concluded that the parasite must have been brought on board by someone with the intent to sabotage the project. Clay wanted to wake up Admiral Kiernan, but Stanley refused, and pointed out that no one had access to his room. Stanley then decided it was time to kick Noah off the ship for stowing away. However, before they could act, Teak noticed that the bodies had disappeared. Suddenly, zombie versions of the corpses attacked the group. Ortega lunged at Noah, while she chased after Teak, who continued to try and shoot but failed. Blue shoved Susan and Clay, while Shu knocked Teak to the ground, and Stanley kept shooting at Blue, but his bullets had no effect. Shu moved in to kill Stanley with a punch, while Ortega nearly killed Noah. At that moment, Susan managed to grab a weapon and started shooting to keep the attackers at bay, giving the group a chance to escape. As they ran through the hallways, they noticed that other cabins were also being unlocked, something only Stanley could do. It was then discovered that Stanley had also turned into a zombie, and was leading the remaining dead to infect the rest of the crew. Clay's group hid in the moonshine room, and they were horrified to hear screams as everyone else was killed and turned into monsters. As the zombies charged in, Clay found a flamethrower and used it to burn them alive. This caused a malfunction in the fire suppression system, making visibility obscure. The zombies suddenly disappeared, and the group decided to leave the room, stepping out into the fog that covered the area. They encountered Lincoln, who quickly joined the group just as a zombie attack occurred. The group managed to kill the monster, but another zombie grabbed Teak and dragged him into the fog. Clay rushed to save his friend, while the others shot to protect them, helping both of them return safely. Afterward, Lincoln suggested using the escape pods, but since they hadn't reached New Earth yet, the group decided to go to the shelter instead of following him. A little while later, Lincoln reached an escape pod and successfully launched it. When the pod left the ship, they discovered that a zombie had followed Lincoln into the pod and immediately killed him. Back with Clay's group, they reached the shelter, but Stanley appeared and tried to attack Clay, intending to kill him with his new mutated tongue. However, Noah appeared and shot Stanley down, then ran with Clay into the shelter and locked the door for the next few hours. The zombies continued to bang on the door, and most of the group members were ready to give up, but Noah was determined not to abandon Haley. At that moment, he noticed the ventilation shafts and realized he could reach Admiral Kiernan through them. He started crawling in, while Clay's virtual image guided him in the right direction. Noah moved carefully, trying to make as little noise as possible to avoid being detected. Teak admitted to Clay and Susan that he was the one who brought the disease aboard the ship, hoping it would kill all of them quickly. He was one of the rebels, those who believed humanity didn't deserve a second chance. Clay, angry, threw him against the wall and promised there would be worse punishment later. At this point, the zombies discovered Noah and tried to reach through the ventilation grills to grab him. However, Noah kicked their hands away and continued moving forward, until he finally reached Admiral Kiernan's room. He didn't have access to the computer, so he used a crowbar to open the cryo chamber hatch. His team informed Kiernan of everything and began interrogating Teak, who explained that humanity had brought the parasite back. Kiernan decided to wake up his entire crew and realized that Noah was the one who had made Haley pregnant. He promised to deal with him later. After the crew was fully equipped with weapons, they moved down the hallway, where zombies were still trying to break into the shelter. A few zombies turned back to attack the group, but the rest eventually broke through the door and attacked Clay's team. A gunfight erupted, and bit by bit, they began taking down the zombies. Soon after, the zombies learned to dodge bullets and directly attack the crew. Now, everyone began to fight hand to hand, and Blue chased Noah, while a few zombies approached Teak to kill him. As both sides lost members, Blue cornered Noah in the supply room and began beating him. Noah tried to defend himself, but Blue knocked him to the ground. As Blue was about to kill him, Noah luckily reached for Moxicell and threw it at Blue. It ultimately killed him by completely dissolving his body. Afterward, Noah returned to the hallway and saw that his team had failed in the battle. Kiernan said a few final words to Haley and activated a bomb, destroying the entire zombie horde. Noah, Clay, and Susan thought it was over, but at that moment, the remaining parts of the zombie bodies began to reassemble. The three hurried to get Moonshine back, while the zombie parts merged into a giant monster. It used Kiernan's hand to open the door to the reactor core. Suddenly, the ship began to shake, and the computer voice announced that the time to New Earth was decreasing by the second. This meant that the zombies were overheating the reactor. This was the parasite's goal from the very beginning. That's why Blue had tried to approach Admiral Kiernan earlier. It wanted to reach New Earth and kill all the remaining humans. After using Moonshine to create a new flamethrower, the three of them went outside and began burning the zombies. The zombie numbers had grown strong as they had started infecting passengers. They wanted as many people as possible to help overload the reactor. The three of them burned as many zombies as they could, but the numbers were overwhelming. So Clay told Noah to find Haley and escape via a lifeboat, while he and Susan would protect him. Noah ran and hid from a few zombies before reaching the cryo room, where he immediately woke Haley and handed her a weapon. The couple then reunited with Clay and Susan, and the group tried to make their way to the escape pod together. However, at that moment, the giant zombie monster appeared and killed Susan. An enraged Clay tried to burn the monster to ashes, but unfortunately it overpowered him. The countdown to New Earth was at 15 days, so the couple hurriedly fled. A few zombies tried to attack them, but they quickly eliminated the threat and kept running. When they reached the escape pod, Haley climbed inside while Noah went to initiate the launch sequence. At that moment, the giant zombie monster appeared. Noah used the Moonshine flamethrower to attack it, then shot directly at the ventilation system to activate the fog again. Despite the poor visibility, the creature managed to strike Noah, but luckily, he fell right next to the computer. After initiating the launch sequence, Noah stepped outside and fired at the zombie with all the remaining Moonshine. This burned away all the mutations until only the parasite remained. Noah then hurried into the escape pod with Haley. As they prepared to leave, they received a message from Clay, who said his goodbyes before pushing the escape pod off the ship. He then began activating the ship's self-destruct sequence to destroy all the zombies and parasites in a massive explosion. Moments later, Noah and Haley arrived at New Earth and immediately encountered a child, whom they quickly realized was infected. As the child approached, they also saw a giant monster in the distance. The couple readied themselves to continue fighting. Remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.